A young woman vanished from her own home, while her parents slept just a room away. No signs of forced entry, no screams, no witnesses. It was as if she had simply disappeared into the night. Detectives couldn't find a single clue, and the mystery seemed unsolvable. But when the truth finally surfaced, it came from the last place anyone expected, and revealed a shocking betrayal hiding just next door. This is the story of Alicia Ross, a young woman whose disappearance would grip an entire nation, and whose killer turned out to be far closer than anyone could have imagined. Alicia Ross was born on February 8, 1980, in Markham, Ontario, a peaceful suburb just outside Toronto. When she was a baby, she was adopted by loving parents who raised her in a warm and stable home. Her childhood was happy, filled with outdoor adventures and summer canoe trips. Even after her parents divorced, Alicia remained close to both of them. She lived with her mother but saw her father often. She was independent, driven, and deeply connected to nature. Canoeing was her escape, gliding across Lake Ontario's calm waters for hours, finding peace in the quiet rhythm of the waves. By her mid-20s, Alicia had built a good life for herself. She worked in sales at Hewlett-Packard's Canadian branch, where her colleagues described her as intelligent, hardworking, and dedicated. At home, she lived in a converted basement apartment in her mother and stepfather's house, her own private space, but still close enough to family to share meals and laughter. On the evening of August 16, 2005, Alicia went for a walk with her mother and their dogs. She was glowing with excitement. She'd just learned that she was getting a promotion at work. That night, after their walk, her boyfriend Sean came over to celebrate. The two talked, laughed, and enjoyed the warm summer night together. Around midnight, he kissed her goodbye and drove home. It was the last time anyone would ever see her alive. The next day, everything began to unravel. When noon arrived and Sean still hadn't heard from Alicia, he began to worry. He called her phone, no answer. He called again, still nothing. He drove to her house, expecting to find her getting ready for work. But her car was still parked outside. Her lights were off, and the house was silent. At first, he thought maybe she'd overslept, but as he walked around the side of the house, his heart sank. The backyard gate was wide open. On the ground lay Alicia's shoes, an empty cup, and a pack of cigarettes. Something was very wrong. He called the police immediately, then phoned her mother, who rushed home in a panic. Within minutes, several patrol cars filled the quiet street. Officers combed through the house. Nothing. There were no signs of a struggle. The bed was neatly made. Alicia's purse, keys, and phone were still on the kitchen table. Her ring, the one she always removed before bed, was still sitting in the bathroom. It looked as though she had stepped outside for just a moment and never came back. Detectives quickly ruled out the possibility that she had run away. This looked like an abduction, and with no witnesses, no noise, and no trace of struggle, the timing was crucial. They believed she was taken shortly after her boyfriend left, possibly within minutes. Naturally, suspicion turned toward Sean. He was the last person to see her alive. Police interviewed him for hours, searched his car and apartment, and questioned his neighbors, but they found nothing. He had no history of violence, no suspicious behavior, no motive. Still, the public wasn't convinced. The story exploded across Canadian media. Headlines portrayed Sean as the likely culprit, the boyfriend who called police too quickly, who refused a polygraph test, who stopped cooperating. He became the face of suspicion, even as he mourned the woman he loved. Meanwhile, the search for Alicia grew into one of the largest in Ontario's history. Police set up a command post in a local school. Helicopters scoured the skies. Search dogs combed through forests and fields. Hundreds of volunteers joined, so many that officers had to turn some away. Despite the massive effort, not a single clue surfaced. Days turned into weeks. Detectives chased every lead, sex offenders in the area, co-workers, ex-boyfriends, but each one ended in disappointment. The case was going cold. Then, on September 20th, 2005, just over a month after Alicia vanished, a man walked into the police station with his lawyer. His name was Sylvester, and he lived right next door. Without hesitation, he told officers, "I killed her." Investigators were stunned. Daniel had never been on their radar. He explained that on the night of August 16th, around 1:30 a.m., he stepped outside his house and wandered into the narrow alley between his home and Alicia's. There, he ran into her. She startled at the sight of him. In the darkness, she asked what he was doing there. He snapped back, saying he had every right to stand outside his own house. An argument broke out, brief, heated, and senseless. Then, according to Daniel, Alicia insulted him. Something inside him broke. He lunged at her, punching her, knocking her to the ground, and slamming her head against the pavement until she stopped moving. When he realized she wasn't breathing, panic set in. He dragged her body into his garage, washed the blood off the walkway, stripped both of their clothes, and stuffed everything, clothing, rags, and towels, into garbage bags. He wrapped Alicia's head to stop the bleeding, placed her in the trunk of his mother's car, and drove into the countryside. At dawn, he dumped her body near a swamp outside a town called Manila, about an hour away. But in his haste, he made a critical mistake. His wallet, with his ID and bank cards, ended up in the same garbage bag as the clothes. In the days that followed, Daniel returned to the site multiple times, desperately searching for the bag. He never found it. A few weeks later, terrified police would discover the remains. He went back again, this time to move the body. By then, decomposition had set in. He gathered what he could, wrapped it in a tarp, and buried it in a wooded area near Coboconk, 40 minutes away. When he finished, he confessed, he felt relieved. He told detectives he never meant to kill her, that he'd just lost control. Still, his calm, almost emotionless recounting chilled everyone in the room. Daniel was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. During his trial in 2007, prosecutors argued that this wasn't a sudden burst of rage, it was premeditated. They suggested that Daniel had been watching Alicia for some time. She lived only a few feet away. He could have seen her through her window, studied her routines, and fixated on her. When he approached her that night, it might not have been random at all. And when she resisted, he snapped, not because of words, but because his fantasy had collapsed. They pointed out that after the killing, Daniel showed no sign of remorse. He methodically cleaned the crime scene, dumped the body, and even returned to hide the remains again. Everything he did afterward, they said, was about covering his tracks, not guilt, but fear of being caught. The defense argued otherwise. They painted Daniel as a deeply troubled man who had been bullied his whole life, who suffered from depression and anxiety, and who had acted in a moment of blind rage. But then came the damning testimony. A psychiatrist revealed that Daniel had admitted to violent fantasies about women, that he often imagined attacking them, even exposing himself to strangers. That revelation shattered any sympathy the jury might have had. They deliberated, and the verdict was clear: guilty of second-degree murder. Daniel Sylvester was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 16 years. He tried to appeal, but his conviction stood. In 2021, he became eligible for parole, but there's no record of him ever being released. When the truth finally came out, the shock rippled across Canada. For over a month, everyone believed Alicia's boyfriend had done it. Even the media had turned him into a villain. After Daniel's confession, one local newspaper publicly apologized to Sean, acknowledging the pain their coverage had caused. He had not only lost his girlfriend, but spent weeks being accused of her murder. In the aftermath, Alicia's parents created a memorial fund in her name. It sponsors canoe lessons for children, a tribute to the passion she loved most. Today, nearly 2 decades later, Alicia Ross is remembered not for how she died, but for how she lived. A bright, kind, adventurous young woman who brought warmth to everyone around her. Her story is a reminder that sometimes evil hides in the most ordinary places, right next door.